It's a snow day in Altenberg in Saxony. We're here for the Bobsleigh and Skeleton World Championships, and it's the first day's action for the two-man bobsleigh. Well, welcome back everybody to our coverage of a very snowy Altenberg in the Sächsische Schweiz, just south of Dresden. Martin Haven and John Morgan getting ready for the second of our four heats. And John, it looks as though we've got a tight battle for some of the medals, even if gold is a bit of a stretch. Well, Johannes Lochner and Eric Franke for Germany lying in third place. A very tight battle, though, with Michael Vogt of Switzerland in second. And there's about 4 or 5 sleds jostling for the silver medal. And it does look to be all about silver. Vogt 5,200s back, 200s behind him is Lochner, 5 behind him, Kiba Manis, 4 behind him, Honighofer, the junior world champion. But the man out front by half a second after one heat is the hometown hero, the winner on this track last year, the 6-time two-man world champion, Francesco Friedrich, for the first time with Alexander Schuller behind him. And they got within 200s of the all-time start record in the first heat. They're not going to be close to the track record in these snowy conditions. But with Friedrich knowing this track inside out, it is going to be tough to beat him. Not only is he quick here, we gather that he can complete the Kessel Run in under 12 parsecs. And if you know what that reference is, you might be able to find pictures of Friedrich messing around before the start of the virtual press conference, launching the games a couple of days ago. His Zoom background was from the Star Wars film On Board. With him as Han Solo. Well, there is Han Solo, Francesco Friedrich. It's like the ice planet Hoth here today. Air temperature 3, ice at -4, but it's all about the snow. There is a lot of it, and it is definitely having an effect on the track and on the athletes who get the worst of it. Well, the snow hasn't let up, so John Morgan, this is going to be tough work for all of these drivers. You can't drive around it, you just have to survive it somehow.
Yeah, there's a sweeping protocol that every 3 sleds, so anybody in that third sled gets a little bit of an advantage, but it's like going to the horse races, you know, you find out who the mother is in the horse races. Here, the person that just wipes all this Mother Nature out of their minds are the ones, I think, that will move up in the standings, Martin. I've known sliders over the years who don't like the snow, and those are the ones who don't get on the podium.
Now, for those who are at the bottom of the top 20, and they're the first off in this second heat as we go 20 to 1 and then 21 to 25, the bottom of the top 20, they're the ones that can ill afford a bad run here. Mihai Tentea just outside the 20, Alexei Stulnev, probably of those two, Tentea is the most likely to challenge. So for Ivo de Bruin, for Patrick Baumgartner, Yun Jong won the first 3 sleds out. Really important not to let a loose one creep in.
Not a bad drive for Ivo in the first run, a 5:34 start. This is a longer start track than the athletes are used to. You run longer here than any other track in the world except maybe La Plan, France. Now, he's got the best ice to work with, Martin. And if he wants to put himself in a position to really, ooh, that was a terrible hit there. He wants to put himself in position to really crack the top 20. This is the heat for him to do it in. He can put some separation on those sleds in 21st, 22nd, 23rd, 24th, who don't come for another hour. (11-12). This is a track that's got challenges all over in it. 13 here, 14, the straightaway, I call that a graveyard section of the track. You can throw away all of your good work. Here through and down, 56.69 for Ivo. And he had a 55.96 in the first heat, so 7/10 slower.
Yeah.
We have a much slower track.
And that's the danger now. if everybody goes 7/10 slower, then he stays where he is. If everybody else only goes 5/10 slower, suddenly overnight he's out of the game and has to fight his way back in. So the next 2 or 3 sleds will probably show us.
Mark, look at this, his back runner to the right. He almost tipped over there. That's the worst run. That's the worst run we've seen from the 2 heats of women's bobsled and then the first heat today. So that's, then he steers so hard there. I think the track's not as slow as he just showed us.
No, he nearly crashed off Omega, and we saw one sled, I'm now trying to remember who it was in the first heat, that had to haul it off Omega and nearly crashed. So Patrick Baumgartner, 19th then, 200s ahead of Ivo de Bruin, and only, 800s ahead of Mihai Tentea in 18th. He needs a good run too.
Well, the start time, which is one of the worst in the field, the 22nd best start from the former Alpine skier and 2012 Junior Olympic champion. But Martin, 10 years of driving, just hasn't brought some results forward. And not that he's a bad driver, that he's got start time issues. But he should be able to beat our good friend at the bottom, Mr. de Bruin, because of that mishap that de Bruin had out of Omega.
Tidier looking run from Baumgartner.
He'll be slower,
3,700s up, half a second up. Yeah, he'll be slower, but he won't be as slow.
Not like de Bruin. Yeah, 6/10. Ivo, you just sentenced yourself to the back of the pack with that run.
Yep. Yeah.
So he's only, I mean, Martin, he's only 1,600 slower, that's all.
Yeah. The guys outside the 20, they need to be super clean as well, though. Mihai Tentea is closest, 21st, but he'll get the most of the snow because it'll be swept after him, because you divide 21 by 3. And they're sweeping, well, actually, they're sweeping some of the straights after every single sled. And, John, there'll be no 2-minute pause in the middle of the run either, because that will just be 2 minutes where there's even more snow for the later runners.
And this Italian pilot can drive. You see him checking his runners there, but Patrick, you need a start time.
Yeah, don't find those in the bottom drawer, though, unfortunately. Yoon Jung-won of Korea, Olympic silver medalist in 4-man, former World Cup champion in 2-man. And Youngwo Seo behind him. Young has been on the back of his sled almost every race they've had. There's a great little bit of history to tell your grandkids about. You get the tattoo, you get the medal. You won an Olympic medal in your home games. To win an Olympic medal, you are in a tiny percentage of athletes on the planet. To do it at home reduces that percentage to ridiculous levels.
Well, you know, the World Cup title holder in 2-man bobsledding in 1914-15. Martin, this athlete here, you know, what he did for the sliding sports in Asia with that historic Olympic silver medal in 4-man, you know, for his country, Korea for sure. But how much of an interest did he promote the sport, you know, as we go into Beijing, you know, and having Asians be involved on the podium in our sport only enhances the global appeal of our sport.
And the one major nation that hasn't made it over to Europe this year is China. They had some good sliders in all categories last year. And it's been very interesting to see what improvements they have made. But of course, they have the sole advantage of being able to use that Olympic track all winter with nobody else having any clue what it's like. So they have to capitalize on that. 2,300s ahead of Baumgartner. So that's a better run as well, because he was only 500s ahead of him in the first heat. And the third sled down, he wasn't the benefit, didn't have any benefit of cleaner ice.
300's better in this heat, or worse in this heat than the second. So pretty much standard that the track from the first heat to the second. He went early in this heat, Martin. He went late in the last heat. And these lines at a curve 9, a little bit of check with the runners. Pretty straight. Good aerodynamic profile from his brakeman. Do we see him back there? No. This is the graveyard section, and he went through it cleanly.
So Yoon Jong-won is our leader at the moment. 3 sleds down from our top 20 in the first heat. Next up, Great Britain's Lamin Dean, who was the first sled on ice. He probably had the least snowy conditions of everybody. James De Solo behind him. De Solo, a sprinter, set the second fastest ever 100 metres time by a British athlete. Joel Fearon's on his 4-man crew, the 3rd fastest man. I have found out the fastest ever British 100 metres time, Linford Christie, as I guessed it possibly might be. 9.91. Big mistake by Lamin Dean in the first couple of corners. Isn't going to help.
Martin, how could a sprinter that fast, and Lamin, who's no slouch, how can they have the 24th out of 25th best start time? What's the story with that?
We know that the Solo is fast and the sled isn't. So therefore,
that doesn't have anything to do with the first
look at the driver.
50 meters. It's the 50 meters. It's you know.
I know. Well,
have to look
if the sprinter is quick on the back, you have to look at the driver. Lamin hasn't had a fast start for a long while. Now he can drive, but like Baumgartner you just saw, he has to drive against a start that's not at the top of the pile. And so he comes down 46 hundredths off the lead.
And that's going to put him in the position that someone from the back of the pack could challenge him. So,
in the danger zone. And it all started going wrong in corner 1, John.
5,500 slower. So like Ivo De Bruin, a heat that he'd like to throw out. But this isn't tennis. There's no lets. They all count. I mean, he made a mistake up top in the before 3. And here he played a little bit.
Look at the deep snow. When you're out by the wall.
Over there.
When you're out by the wall, you're in 3 or 4 inches of snow.
And then into 13, he had to steer hard here. Look at, because he got in late. Yep. Right on the bubble.
Sure. Yeah. Could be trouble for him. Benny Meyer is next up for Austria. 16th after the first heat. And for Benny, it all went very wrong very early. Out of curve 1, Benesh. It was just a bit of a nightmare. All the speed they had at the start went away. And they did have a good start again. 4th quickest getaway, 5:26.
Yeah, but Martin, his mistake, curve 1 to 2, he's sideways. He had a run to forget. 5:27, good start. Little variance there going into the Benesh curve. They call it the Benesh curve because Matthias Benesh, the former World Cup bobsledder from Germany, crashed out of curve 1 one day, so he's got the name forever, the Benesh curve. And this should be a better run, Martin. He could move up 5-6 sleds with any kind of decent run from a guy who's won 2 World Cup medals this year. And again, when you have the 4th best start, you shouldn't be back at 15th, 16th spot like he is.
And he's called out of the Kreisel. It was waving up and down in the Kreisel, and Benny Meyer's 2-man World Championship comes to an end. Even if they make it across the finish line, which they may do, he's definitely not going to make a 4th heat. He had to give it everything he knew. He's
done excellent in 4-man too, so now they got to watch for the sled going back to see if they hooked him. Here it goes back. That's, you know, I ask about that, and they say people get hurt trying to stop the sled, but I like getting the hook on the sled. Now the sled will go back up this way, it'll come all the way back, and where they stop, hold on, now let's see when they stop. So they're going to let the sled stop, and then that's where the medical personnel.
Mark Huster says there will be a 5-minute track hold because of the crash. You can see that Marcus Sammer is out at the back. He's winded, but he should be okay. And the doctor is right there. You can see him coming up with the backpack. And there's the ambulance arriving as well. And the track workers have seen plenty of crashes here. And John, high first pressure. He's late onto the Kreisel. And that's going to be big second pressure.
I think he's fine there, Martin.
Brought it down early.
This is right there. Yeah, that back up. Yeah. That's this track. I mean, this guy just won a medal last week in Innsbruck on his home track, but it doesn't matter who you are or how talented. Just scary, Martin, that you know, you see these pictures, and let's hope they get Benny Meyer up.
Well, they're doing 111, 112 kilometers an hour in the Kreisel, so that is a 65-mile-an-hour rollover. Yeah, both of them are down there. You can see 2 sets of overalls, 2 helmets. There's Marcus Sammer, his helmet off. Benny's got his helmet still on, but he is okay.
Yeah, I'm sure he'll take tomorrow. Relax.
I would be surprised if they go again tomorrow. There's just no point to it. They can't make the cut.
No point to.
No.
4-man training on Monday.
Focus on 4-man. Yeah. Today is
he's
a
good
very
in
bad
4-man.
day
Again,
at the office.
He's really good in 4-man. But that first heat, you know, something happened in the first heat. He said to himself, I got to let it go on the edge. I got to really, really don't steer, and that's probably what happened to him on the exit of Kreisel. Just got a note from our good friend Pierre Lueders, Martin. We just got a text from Pierre Lueders. Nice race in Altenberg. Looks like the brooms are working well. Everyone from China says hello. Great track here. Don't need brooms here. China girls say hello to Kaylee and wish her luck. Pierre Lueders.
Well, you could
see
high pressure. How high he was on all the pressures, and that's because he came onto the Kreisel late from the wrong side of the straight, maybe with a skid as he went under our camera position. And so you're late on, and each pressure is later and higher. And you can use that if you can get it landed perfectly off the Kreisel, but he just didn't have the timing, brought it down a fraction early. And as a result, there was still centrifugal force pushing the sled up the outlet of the curve, and it rolled up the wall and into the track. Well, there's Benny on the left, Marcus Sammer on the right. Marcus in his 7th World Championships, I think. And same for Benny.
When was the last time Benny Meyer crashed?
It's been a while. It's been a while. And under the Lycra, he's got a T-shirt, that's all. You know, they wear helmets and they wear nothing else in terms of protection. Might not be a bad idea to make Burns vest mandatory, but that's yet to happen. Looks like they managed to stay inside the sled. Little easier possibly to stay inside a 2-man than it is with all the meat packed in a 4-man sled. The 2-man brakeman gets a lot more room for his legs and to be able to sort of really bend down out of the way. The driver's always trying to get his head back under the cowl. That's not easy. Doctor is Gunther Frenzel from the Altenberg Clinic now, works in Berlin. And there is your
Martin,
race leader.
Trying to think of the most famous crashes in Altenberg. 91, I don't remember anything that caught my attention. In 2000, I remember Marcel Rohner was one of the favorites in the 4-man competition, and he crashed in the first heat. That I think was the most famous crash that I saw. 2008, everybody crashed in 2008. There was like 50 of them in the whole training of 2 weeks. But hey, how about this? The Austrian sled goes down and crashes. Next up is another Austrian sled.
Yeah. All reminds you that they are absolutely on the edge, although there is no safety margin here. This is racing. This is not taxi bobs. They're not carrying passengers who have paid for a nice ride. This is racing. This is very raw, very, very different. And there is no safety net. Next up then is Austria's Marcus Treichel. He was 100th ahead of Benny after the first heat. Off the start, there was a 10th slower, 5:36 for Marcus. You can see his race suit could probably do with an upgrade during the winter, or at least some of the holes stitching back up. They tend not to like changing them. So Marcus Treichel, Sebastian Mitterer, 15th after the first of 4 heats in the BMW IBSF 2-man bobsleigh World Championships. A 5-minute track hold after the crash of their teammates Benny Meyer and Marcus Sammer. They know that they are well, and now they've got to put that out of their head, and John Morgan somehow race on the ragged edge and produce good speed again.
Yeah, you know, the question is how much snow is accumulated. Did they sweep? He had a pretty good run in the first run, Martin. 19th best start. He started 20th in the field and came down to 13th. So that was one of the better runs for Marcus that I've seen this season. And he needs better runs because of the deficient start time. Those are great lines there, Martin. Dead heat.
Yeah.
Best speed.
He had 600s over Yun Jung-won from the first heat. He's 100th in front.
Gonna be clean here. He's dead heat, right to the 100. Whoa, late there, Martin. That's gonna cost him.
Nearly cost him big time. 200s back, he'll take that, whatever.
It's not bad.
200's in it, yeah, he's down and he's safe, and they are still in the hunt. 1700s, worse than his first run. Out of 15 there, bottom part of the track, Martin. Looks like he went up too high, took too much of the curve, and got off there late. And that definitely affected his downtime. He went from green to red, but you know, red by 200ths. He's definitely in the field at the moment. This is okay, 13 to into 13. Climbing, watch the back end of the sled here if they show it. No, and then this is where he makes the mistake right there. Look at that cowling. When you see the cowling split like that, all the air rushes in there. He lost by 200ths. Well, there was 200ths at least right there. Yeah, big flop down at the bottom. In the black in the doorway there, Anja Schneider-Heinze, former world champion. She is one of the jury members here this weekend. Dominik Dvorak at the top of the track with Jakub Nošek, third in the World Cup standings at the end of the season this year. Crazy year, but Dvorak did all 12 races. A couple of times he was in fourth position, just off the podium, and we were hoping for big things from him, but disappointingly 14th in the first heat.
12th best start, 29. They should at least match it. Long run for these athletes, 30. Third best velocity. That has to do with maybe you run too far, maybe you pull the sled back, you might have the best start. But, you know, your velocity is more important than the start time. And Martin, what a season he had, the first Czech athlete ever to walk away with a Crystal Globe, with a bronze, a third place finish in the World Cup standings. Congratulations to him and all the great Czech sliders that have been around. This was the most accomplished season. Red numbers, though.
Yeah,
we definitely have a snow race on our hands.
Yes, we do.
He's going to fall back 2. He's going to fall back 2, maybe 3.
Yeah, three spots on the line.
56, 26. Wow.
Well, that gives Baumgartner a bit more breathing space.
4,500 slower, Martin.
Yeah, not a great second heat. Weather forecast for tomorrow, not brilliant, I have to say. So I think anybody who makes mistakes today is never going to recover lost ground.
Look at the brakeman's technique. Great. Visor down. Now get his shoulders down into the aerodynamic profile perfectly, because you don't see the brakeman there at all. So that's the great technique for the brakeman to be in there. And he can't act like a sandbag. He's got to feel himself down the track, because if he's stiff in that sled, that's worth time too.
First of our two Canadian sleds is Chris Spring. He was just 200s behind his teammate after the first heat. They were 12th and 13th, and his advantage over Yun Jung-won is 1100ths of a second.
600 slower, that's not good. No reason you should be that far back from the first. There's a roof on the track up there, so yeah, a little bit of a mishap there. The brakeman, Mike Evans from Ottawa, he's an electrical engineer. You got an engineer tag in your resume. That's pretty good to be involved in this sport.
A few taps coming into the
Of
prize
course,
hole.
Springer, of course, had that unbelievable accident here in 2011. Visiting in the hospital down in Dresden a couple days later. What a comeback he's made. Yeah. Won a Europa Cup race on this track earlier in the year. Ooh, 100th. Wow. 56.04, 2,600 slower.
Yun Jong-won is turning into our Andrea Grecu here, isn't he?
Yeah.
Disappointing first run.
But
he's already picked off Dean and Meyer and Treichel and Dvorak and Spring, so he's moved up 5.
That's called the snow. Look at the runner. Look at the runner tips checking there. The Springer. Don't think this was a bad drive. I think we're going to see some strange happenings here.
Yeah.
Which, hey,
yeah, lots of
you
mistakes.
go to the racetrack,
big looping height there, and you got to keep it away from the walls, keep it out of the snow.
Horse track, Martin. You go to the races. It's pouring rain. You don't bet on the favorites. You know, so
yeah, but they're all. The difference there is they're all running at the same time. So
Yeah. But still,
well,
Mother
what about
Nature
Justin?
Changes competition.
What about Justin Cripps and Cam Stones? 9th best start, which is a little bit of a surprise, and 12th at the bottom. They didn't get a great draw, but then on a snow day, I'm not sure there is a great draw. But you have to keep it away from the walls on the straight, because that's where all the snow is swept out to.
5:11's the start record. Justin Cripps and Alex Kopak own it. 5:31 in this heat. So he's 2/10 down off the start record, Martin. Cripps, who's had some great results on this track, but he has a chance to move up here considerably with a good run. He did not have a good first run.
Yeah, he needs to do a Yun Jong-won, doesn't he?
Silver medal in the World Championships on his home track 2 years ago.
And they were the silver medalists here 2 years ago as well in the World Cup race behind Friedrich, predictably. It's a good-looking run. And
losing time. Ooh, big skid there.
Keeping it away from the walls, across the line. 55.92. Well, it's goodbye from me and goodbye from Yun Jong-won. Okay, 1,600 slower than his first heat. That's dropping not as much as most. That could see him safely inside the top 10. Yeah, the start time's not great.
He's never 1,500ths off the start, but this is the longer start track. This is a different track than they see in Innsbruck, Winterberg, any place, St. Moritz.
Yeah.
This is a longer start track. But he owns the track record with Alex Kopak, so that's
here's how much longer it is.
Right there, look at
the
that
track record. The track record here is 5:11. In Innsbruck, it's 4:96. 1,500s more running here. That doesn't sound like a lot, but it's a lot. Rostislav Gajtukovic of Russia. Well, I think I lost your $10 on this kid, John, I'm afraid, in the first heat. We were thinking maybe he might be in the top 5 or 6, challenging for medals in his second World Championships. Ilya Malik behind him, the brakeman, in his 4th Worlds. But it's been a big breakout season for this young Russian slider. Gajtukovic, 26 years old, first World Cup season. Crashed out in Heat 2 here last year. So this is the real bogey heat for him.
Martin, again, he's not getting the start times he's getting in the regular World Cup. Last week at Innsbruck, top 3 start. Here in the first running, the 9th best start. So it's a different start track, and people who are sprinters, you know, might have a better advantage here, but I don't know. I'm a little confused why he and Cripps don't have better starts.
Well, he started 5:28. 5:26 is the 4th best start, so he wasn't far away from most of the field. Ooh.
9th, though. This 5:28 was the 9th best start.
Yeah.
but he's going to fall behind Cripps. Now the question is, he could fall behind Juan too. Oh,
yeah.
This is not. He could fall 4 spots. He does. Sixth best time, 56.25. Martin, wow, 27 and 25, 5,200 slower.
Yeah.
Wow.
Half a second lost.
But,
and
I mean,
you saw where all of it went, didn't you? You saw every mistake.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's not material. That's looking out the side window when you're driving, which is not what you need.
This is 9. He's up on ice when no one else gets to. Bang.
Yep. Came down
Bang.
too early.
3.
Went back up.
Still skidding. Still skidding. Then here in the graveyard section, bang. Sideways.
Look at that.
He's trying to bring it back, but checking the runners. That's like putting a parachute on, Martin, and that's why he's going to drop. He's right down there in the cut.
Yes, he is.
He's right in the cut.
Could be in trouble. Could be in trouble. Justin Cripps leads from Yun Jong Won. First 10 sleds down here out of 25. So in 10th place after the first heat, Brad Hall and Greg Cackett for Great Britain. 8200ths off the lead. And 3/10 out of the medals.
Second best velocity, pretty good. 29, just like they had in the first run. Brad Hall's had a pretty good season, other than a lot of bad luck. Another decathlete in the front seat here.
When they've been able to drive, he's been able to drive, and they've had a lot of injury problems. Pretty decent run down into the Kreisel. Yeah.
6th best speed. He's got some issues here. He's going to need to be clean, losing more time back. I think he's going to have a problem here on the bottom. Needs to be perfect here.
Oh!
That's not perfect. Should
Cripps is going to pick up another spot at the line. Yes, by a 10th. So Cripps moves up. He had a much cleaner bottom part of the track than Brad Hall and Rostislav Gajdukovic. And yeah, Brad getting sideways there, especially out of curve 14 as you go over that brow, and it just makes the sled go even more sideways.
2nd to 5th, Martin, separated by 500s. That's going to be pretty cool.
Yeah, it sure is.
5 sleds, 500s. This is how not to do it. And then all the pressure he's got to take here to turn hard to get onto that curve and get out of the exit there. Boy, you can do well and then make a mistake down there in the graveyard, and that's the reason I call it the graveyard, Martin. You can
this track forgives nothing.
No chance.
Forgives nothing. Well, Brad Hall, 2nd place with 9 top sleds still to come. May still end up in the top 10. Justin Cripps will end up in the top 10 overnight. But in these snowy conditions, as we've seen from so many sleds in the first and the second heat, the slightest error is really multiplied because there's so much snow on the track. You're not sliding on glassy ice. You're digging in to fresh, wet snow, and that has even more of a slowing down effect. Roman Heinrich of France, 8th place, equal with Christoph Hafer of Germany. And this is the group that is within 3 or 4 tenths of medals. They need another excellent run.
Good first run, 17th best start in the first run. Drove himself into an 8th place finish. That's as good as you can do with the start deficiency. The brakeman, Dorian, is a track and field coach, longtime soccer player.
They find another couple of hundreds at the start, and yeah. Ooh.
Only 900s. That's relative to the start deficiency. Now, if he can keep it to 600s or 700s with good lines in the bottom, he might have a chance. He was in the sweeping protocol, and there, Martin, he just took advantage of it. After every 3 sleds they swept, and he was the guy next up when they were sweeping. And he's going to maintain his spot, Martin.
Yeah, he is. He's got a 10th on Cripps. He had...
Nice run. This is just like he did in the first run, driving well, he'll be rewarded.
Well, he had
Nice
2100s on Cripps from the first heat. 1700s remains, so not quite as good a run as Cripps, but he's happy with that. He'll be top 10 overnight, and he had a pretty tough time here last year, John. Where did he end up in the ranking? Oh no, he was 9th place here last year, so actually that is his best World Cup result, and he wants to beat that, his World Championship result.
Take away the start, he's driving the best lines on the track, some of the best lines on the track, Martin. His start efficiency, 17th best start to finish into 8th in the first run. You don't do that there's no luck involved with that. That's talent.
Yeah, started 200 slower than Cripps on this run, and the run was 400 slower, so that's a good drive. Well, tied with Christoph Hafer, Francesco Friedrich was after the first of our 2 heats. So Hafer set the time, and Heinrich, 2 sleds later, matched it. Hafer was 200 slower at the start, so he needs to find some pace as well.
20th best start out of a German sled, Martin. Whoa, that is... I have to go deep back into my vault to find out when a German sled starting the 20th start in the field. Now they do that in the women's skeleton, but then they win. But I don't get it. But he's a great driver. He wouldn't be in this position competing with a bad start like this, representing Germany in one of the sleds without being great driver down the track. 3rd best speed. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets this to green numbers. Here it comes.
He probably wouldn't be racing if Hans-Peter Hanikhofer hadn't won the Junior Worlds. I think Hanikhofer would have got the nod. Half a 100th ahead of Roman Heinrich. They were tied to the 100th at the end of the first heat. 300s between them.
93. Rennie Spiess looks on. Rennie knows this German athlete had a start.
Well, 4 German sleds in the top 8 anyway is not bad. That's 50% of the 8 fastest sleds, but you're right, they need to find some more speed at the start.
I would say it's in the driver's ability, not the brakeman, because the Germans don't put out any brakemen in these sleds who aren't, you know, elite athletes.
Yeah. And that's part of the answer to why Friedrich starts so quickly, is because he's as quick as any of his brakemen.
Listen, 20th best start in the first run, and he was 8th at the bottom. The guy has got the eyes and the hands.
Yep. 7th after the first of 4 heats in this 2-man bobsleigh World Championship. Oscar's Melbardist. New boy Chris Lindenblatt's making his World Championship debut on the back of the sled. He's only started a couple of World Cup races this season, so in his 2nd year of sliding, he is clearly their fittest, fastest, or maybe their best long-distance sprinter.
4th best start, the first run, very impressive.
Yeah.
5:26, same exact. Melbardist in the twilight of his career, used to have the start record on most tracks. The biggest man in the front seat in the competition. He had a pretty good first run, Martin. You know, he hasn't really done well. He's been finishing 12th, 13th in the 2-man most of the season. Didn't complete the whole season. Ooh,
yeah, came here for a couple of weeks training. And that's paying off now.
10th best speed.
Hadn't been confident in Altenberg last year in his first season back. Little skid.
Watch out, I don't think he's going to do it. He's got red numbers and trouble. He's going to fall back maybe 2 spots, Martin.
Yeah.
2 spots
Should
back.
be behind Heinrich. Yeah, oh, and only just ahead of Justin Cripps. Whoa.
Cripps is moving up that leaderboard.
Yeah, Cripps moves up.
So
Cripps doesn't move up one there, but Heinrich and Hafer both pick him off.
6,200ths worse in that run, Martin, than his first heat. So this is late here, I thought. But watch how he's late.
Yeah.
But watch the sled
You
just
weren't
come
wrong.
down and flop and will just come straight.
Luck or judgment. Well, then he gets in the snow as well. And here,
In the graveyard, look at this. This is like sayonara with your time.
yeah,
It's, look
yeah.
at Sanders Prusis.
Well, there's a few
That's
sleds that got
exactly what
sideways. Yeah, over that brow from 14 to 15. That's a real killer. Next up is the first of our two Swiss sleds. This is Simon Friedrich with Andreas Haas behind him. Haas, newcomer to the team this season. First World Championships for the 24-year-old. Friedrich now 29. It's only his second Worlds as a driver. Both of them, of course, played out here in Altenberg. But it's his his seventh World Championships, because he was a brakeman before that. Bronze medalist in Innsbruck in 2016 in the four-man with Rico Peter. So that's his World Championship medal so far.
28 in the first run, which was the 9th best start. He drove himself into 6th. That's pretty good. 27, a better start. Martin, I mentioned it in the first run. I'll do it again. We lost a legend in the sport. Swiss brakeman Sepp Benz passed away overnight. Sepp won was a brakeman for Eric Scher. Wasn't for Sepp Benz and Eric Scher, the East Germans would have won every single race from 75 to 80. They won the 2 world championships in 78, 79, and 80. They were the best starters in the world, and again, we lost another legend in the sport, Sepp Benz.
Only 6th best speed at the Kreisel. This is where Friedrich flew in the first heat. He and Michael Vogt both had really good speed at the bottom, and these are nice lines again from Simon Friedrich. It's only his 3rd year driving.
Really good. Swiss sleds have always done well on this track.
Nice
But,
run.
as I say that, 37 slower. As I say that, Martin, the Swiss have not won a world championship medal on this track since Christian Reich in 2000. So
yeah.
We've got a
Been a while.
long time. Been
Well,
a
it was
while.
this century at least. Well, we had 4 German sleds in the top 8 after the first heat, and 2 Swiss sleds. Didn't leave room for much else, did it? The traditional powerhouses of sliding.
Look at the lines. This is Hafer, who had an excellent drive down the track. Friedrich lets it get away from him a little bit. Hafer a lot more consistent until the end. But look at the graveyard. He gets over there in that little snowdrift, but speeds at the bottom. Of course, Juan went earlier.
Yeah. Good run from Friedrich. Will be
run.
top 6 overnight. Yeah, no wonder he's punching the air with that.
I like that.
His 7th last year. He leads now with the fastest 5 to go. Hans-Peter Hanikhofer gets his spot as the junior 2-man world champion, with Christian Roeder making his World Cup debut as well, World Championship debut as well. Sorry, 12 World Cup races.
25.
He's now force of habit. That's a great
25,
start.
100 better. Martin, this is my pick. I think this is a dark horse for a medal. He drove, and he started 18th in the first run, had the 4th best start, drove himself into a 5th position. I think this young German athlete here has got a chance to really challenge for a podium, and this is the heat to make a statement.
Well, don't forget, the last
he's
time we
doing it.
saw a junior world champion coming into the Worlds as the 4th sled for Germany. He ended up winning 2-man gold in Samaritz. That was Francesco Friedrich, and that's
Boy, was he
it.
on the edge right there.
Whoa, Hanikhofer almost crashed there. Well, no, but he is
Could come down to
absolutely
single
fighting
digits.
for the medals.
That's okay, considering the mistake he made. Look at Rennie Spiess, look. That was almost another crash. Look at him
Beating
putting his
himself
hand.
up. Yeah, no, that. Yeah. But he didn't lose a place. He is still in the top 5.
He's hurt. Look, he's hurt. Hurt.
Yeah.
His hand, his arm,
Left
he's
calf.
hurt. Limping.
Left calf. His leg.
Cramp. Cramp.
Or tweaked something as they were starting. They started 5:25, that was quicker, and if his leg is burning with agony from a muscle spasm, he was lucky there, wasn't he?
How about this?
Got
This is late. Watch him late here. And then
Yeah.
he gets into the skid. This is not the way you want to enter 13. Boy, that's hard steering to correct like that, Martin. He saved it there. And, you know, could have been worse.
And still
Martin, it
had
could have been a lot
speed.
worse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They could have crashed out there. Honighofer. So what about the medals? How close can he get? Because silver is 52 hundredths off the lead. Honighofer was 11 hundredths out. Kibomanis 7 hundredths off silver. This is where we get to the very serious stuff.
Yeah, the second best, first best start in this heat. The second, the first run with an 18. I don't think he had that good a run, Martin. And his brakeman, Minkins, is a basketball player. A lot of these guys are basketball players or decathletes coming out of Latvia. 700s. He should be more than that with that start advantage. He should have been up double digits, so I think this might come back to even.
Well,
there it is.
Honighofer lost a lot of speed below the Kreisel as well, so it could come back yet to Kibomanis.
Now he's going to fall a couple places.
No, yeah.
This mistake
He'll
was
be
made
behind
up top.
Friedrich. He's going to be behind Honighofer and Friedrich, and he is in trouble with Hafer and Heinrich. Where's he going to be? Just hangs on in front of Hafer, but loses 2 places. Melbardis lost a couple as well. It's not been a happy morning for Coach Sandis Prusis.
Best start, 5:17. He blew everybody away at the start. His mistakes were up top. Couple hits in the labyrinths. He lost his speed, his start advantage.
Yeah.
This was where he had the, he had a big advantage, a 10th over Friedrich and Honighofer. And then Martin just makes some mistakes up top. He should have been double digits ahead with that start. And I noticed he was only like 700ths right here. Look at the speed, 12th best speed before Kreisel.
Yeah.
That number doesn't lie. His mistake was made up there before the labyrinths. A couple bangs.
Yeah.
When you got that type of start,
by the time he got to corner 9 there. And it's, again,
he medaled in
it's
this.
Bronze medal last year. And here's our silver medalist from last year's Worlds, Johannes Lochner. So 2 podium finishers in 3rd and 4th place. And what separated them from the positions in the first heat that they were in at the end of the 4th 12 months ago is Switzerland's Michael Vogt. But this is a really tight battle. So Lochner now has to absolutely produce the goods and take this silver medal position.
22 in the first run. So the good guys are getting better by 100th or 2. So he should at least have a 22, if not a 21. 22. So he's done that. But now there's no mistakes allowed, and we've seen him up here, Martin.
Yep. Well, he wasn't happy with his first heat. Let's see what he's got in the second.
The exit there's good. Exit out of Omega was great, 1400s. He should have been maybe 16 or 17 right there.
Oh, flops
that's
off
not
9.
Good. No, that's not good. He lost speed up time. 10th best speed, Martin. I don't know if he's going to hold his place.
I don't think he is.
Coming back.
I think Honighofer moves up. It's going to be tough between the 2 German sides.
Oh, as soon as we said that, he starts pulling away. So he's going to be the leader. He found it on the bottom. So his mistakes were made up top, but it shows why he's a multiple World Cup medalist, World Championship gold medalist in 4-man.
Not happy. Still 3,800 slower than his first heat. Not happy. He didn't like the first one, and he liked the second even less. Look how late he is here out of Chudai. Hauling it off.
And he flops, and bang, 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 and then he comes straight, though. But 10th best speed there, Martin. This is where we sort of sentenced him to not be in the lead. Up, down,
look at the
up.
variation in the Kreisel.
And then one more up, and then he dives out of there.
There's Eric Franke. Look at the mullet. Hansi cut his hair a couple of weeks back. It's not looking any better with time. Michael Vogt and Sandro Michel. What a great first run for the Swiss. Second place after the first heat, but this is so tight. 22-year-old driver, 24-year-old brakeman. This could be a medal-grabbing run. It needs to be.
26 in the first run and the second run. This was the biggest surprise of the first heat, Martin. This young Swiss pilot came down, and I think he surprised, I bet you even himself, to be in second place in this World Championship field. 7 back, but don't. Watch out. This is where he's got to keep this within 1500s.
Yeah.
5. Here he comes.
Back to 5.
Martin, this is what he did the first run. In the first run, he was perfect down here. He's the only guy that challenged Friedrich on the bottom part of the track in the first run.
He was super fast. Is he going to be in the silver medal position overnight? It's 400ths of a second. The gap is coming right back down. Will he lead Hansi Lochner at the line? Not by 500ths. But, well, he had a great season in the two-man. Didn't compete in the last 2 race weekends. Otherwise, Michael Vogt would probably have been in 3rd place overall in the World Cup standings.
Well, that brings Hannah Hoffer back into the group.
Yeah.
You know, that wasn't a very good exit. He's still skidding. Come straight. Martin, his splits on the bottom, the 4th to 5th intermediates were as good as Friedrich in the first run. I don't think he had that same run this time out.
But he is in the top 3. We've got a battle for the medals, covered by 1500ths, and then half a second clear is this man, Francesco Friedrich. He's the Terminator, isn't he? You just can't stop him. With Alexander Schuller behind him, a 5:13 first heat. The track record is 5:11. They've got 3 more attempts to break it, and you know they are trying to. 5:12, they're 100th away from the track record set by Justin Cripps and Alex Kopacz. That's one of the targets for this weekend.
Well, we're looking at history here. If he wins this 4-heat competition, he will establish himself as the greatest ever, eclipsing Eugenio Monti's mark. I got a chance to see Monti, believe it or not, Martin, in 1961 at the World Championships in Lake Placid when Monti won double gold. And that's when he was right in the midst of his dominating fashion in the sport. And this athlete here is dominated like no other in the last 8 years in our sport. And he's just making a joke of this.
By a second. Francesco Friedrich,
unbelievable.
8800ths up. Wow.
Another planet. He's on another. I've never seen anybody dominate like this. Yes, winning races, but winning races by the margins that he wins by.
I can remember watching, watching Christoph Langen win by 8/10 in 4-man in St. Moritz over 4 heats. He does it in 2 and then comes back the next day and adds more. And there are
margins that he wins by.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
not just the frequency, it's the otherworldliness of it. You know, I think most of the drivers here recognize that they have to have their day of days, and he has to make mistakes for the medals to go away. And he doesn't make many mistakes. Francesco Friedrich and Alexander Schuller lead after the first day's action in the BMW IBSF 2-man bobsleigh World Championships. Hansi Lochner in second, positions himself where he was last year at the end of the competition. Michael Vogt and Hans-Peter Hannighofer in the fray as well. Simon Friedli, perhaps. Kiebermanis, maybe. But behind them, Hafer, Heinrich, Melbardis, Cripps and the rest, their personal battles. So first 20 sleds are down, the remaining 5 still to go. But with Benny Meyer, I think, highly unlikely to compete tomorrow, that takes a little bit of pressure off, maybe, for this man, Mihai Tentea. Now, it's not about the difference to Friedrich, it's about the difference to the man at the tail of the field in 19th place currently, which is Ivo de Bruyn. And Ivo was 0.06, 600ths of a second ahead. So Tentea basically has to outdrive Ivo on this run by 600ths, and he is ahead or tied with the Dutchman.
You know, Martin, we know he can drive. He just gives up so much time at the start, this young Romanian. And Romania, as I mentioned in the first run, they won the World Championships in 1933-34. Olympic medal in Grenoble in '68 was their last Olympic medal, and their last World Championship medal was in '73 in Lake Placid.
Ooh.
But they're
very late.
Every race.
Well, behind Benny Meyer at the
Bobsleigh
moment.
coming up.
But now he gets ahead because Meyer had crashed by that stage. And where is he? He's ahead of de Bruyn.
He does.
Yeah.
Yes,
so he's ahead of Benny Meyer. He's ahead of Ivo de Bruyn. That will put him in the top 20 overnight, surely. That's what he needed.
A start time, Martin. If he has a start time, he can compete. He's a good young driver, and he's only 25. We've seen him for like 6 years now.
Yeah.
We saw him at the Winter or Königssee Worlds for the first time.
Yep.
The lines. Is he working with the best equipment? It's not bad. Probably got great runners. His nemesis is the 50-meter start.
I'll tell you what I want to see. I want to see a comparison of how Friedrich gets out of Omega in the middle of the track and everybody else is hard up on the left-hand wall. I don't know how he does it, but that's where Friedrich makes his speed early in the run, and nobody else can match him. And that's going to be a tough job for Alexei Stulnev as well, with Vladislav Zarovchev behind him. 22nd after the first heat. Even assuming Benny Meyer doesn't go, he's 21st and is currently not making the cut. And he was 2100ths behind Tentea, so he needs to improve by getting on for 3/10 in this run.
Martin, he didn't make the cut a couple times, like in St. Moritz, and this is one of the veterans in the field. He's got as much experience as anybody, and he's had a very disappointing two-man. A little bit better in the four-man, but he's no longer Russia 1. And in training, I looked at his training times. I said, wow, he's doing pretty good. Neither he or his teammate have done very well here. The Bobsled Federation of Russia, not having a good day.
No. And he flops off the end of Kreisel. He is still not ahead of Benny Meyer on the split times. And Benny crashed off the Kreisel, don't forget. Now he is in the top 20, so ahead of Ivo de Bruyn at the line, yes. 18th best run, so he puts Ivo behind him. At the moment, Stulnev is in the race overnight, and de Bruyn is not. Ivo was the first sled down.
We saw.
Yeah.
We saw him almost crash. So Ivo de Bruyn is now being heavily penalized for that driving error, and he's going to have to drive himself into the race tomorrow in the third run. They're not far apart, Martin.
No.
Yeah, they're only 700ths apart. This is the
And that's
Kreisel
tiny margins, and it could be very heavy snow tomorrow as well.
And they'll go back to back, the two of them will go, because you go first to last tomorrow in the third run.
Yeah. Man, oh man, tough times. Tough times for rookie Emils Kipulis and Arnis Bibris of Latvia as well. Both of them in their first World Championships. And 15th fastest at the start, 23rd at the bottom though. Kipulis with 2 World Cup starts this season. So his first World Cup races, only a couple of years driving.
Long ways to run, as we've been talking about on this track. 5:35, you know, average, a little bit less than average, but let's see what he can do. I mean, he needs to at least move up 1 or 2 spots to put himself into a chance to make the 4th run tomorrow.
I think as the third Latvian sled and a real rookie, relatively new driver, 3 heats was probably all they were expecting from him, unless there was carnage. It's a pretty neat looking run, and that was the end of that then, as soon as I thought it.
What do you call that?
That's the commentator. Well, not bad at the bottom. What speed has he got? Who does he get ahead of? Does he get ahead of Benny Meyer only? So 7/10 out of the race. I think tomorrow he's looking at a 1-heat day, isn't he?
The only way you don't get ahead of Benny Meyer is if you crash.
Yeah. Well, kind of depends where you crash as well. If you crash earlier, you crash out of 1, Benny's still ahead.
Look at this mistake, 2 to 3, then in the Omega. So this is
Big
down
height.
and up, and you know, it's important. The exit, don't hit the wall on the right. He does. You hit that take before the take on. Look at this mark here, back, you know, airborne. That's in the crossover from Omega. And then, you know, this isn't as bad a mistake. You know, at that speed, up top when the speeds are slow and you hit like that, not good strategy.
Well, for Yoon Jin Suk and Ki-Kun Yang of Korea, it is looking like an even more likely to be a 3-heat race. Look at the size of the brakeman. Jang is just absolute monster of a brakeman. I mean, he's
and the driver's standing on the push
head and shoulders.
Look, the driver's
he's almost head and shoulders above anybody, isn't he?
And then he's got to get that 6'6" frame into that sled. As
well, it's one thing doing it in a 2-man. Imagine trying to get him into the middle of a 4-man sled and somehow out of the airstream.
Probably into the number 2 positions where you put a guy like that.
Or hanging out the back with his backside on the ice. Started 5:43 in the first heat.
23rd best start, 5:48. There's nothing you can work with there. Oh, then he bangs before he gets to curve 3. Oh, watch the bang here in the exit. No, he does well there.
I think after that early tap, he was in self-preservation mode in the Omega. Was really not going to crash off 4. Here we go, out of the Kreisel, down the middle of the track.
Very safe lines.
But he's nearly 5 kilometers an hour slower than the fastest sleds at the bottom. And across the line, 57.18. So that's another 7/10, 6/10 slower than his previous run.
Almost 8/10. Snow accumulation in the track.
Wow, yeah. Well, and you know, the mistake early on, out of 1, he was skidding and tapping, so by the time he got to Omega, he's hauling it off to stop it rolling out. Look at this.
That mistake there between 2 to 3. Here in the graveyard.
Yeah, in the snow.
Not as bad as some.
1 more heat, that's all he's going to get, unless there are a dozen disqualifications. So our final sled, Evan O'Hanlon of Australia and Joseph Williamson. It's been a few years, John, since we had an Aussie team in the World Championships. Last was maybe Samoritz 2013, as recently as that, I'm thinking. However, Evan O'Hanlon, a 5-time Olympic champion, a 5-time Paralympic champion in the T38 100 meters category. And looking to cross over now that he is retired from track rather than field. That would have put him in an F38 category. He's now looking to cross over from Paralympics to Olympics and go summer to winter all at the same time.
Awesome. You know, there is a sportsman award. They should give it to him.
Well, he may not win the Max Huben Trophy, but he's going to win a lot of support back home as well. He's got a massive support in Australia. 5-time Olympic champion, multiple world champion. You tend to get that. Started driving in 2019, so really still in the foothills. And a long slide down the straight. And for him, this is all critical experience to get that big competition feel back again.
And Martin, this is some track to make your debut on in the sport.
Yes.
Which he's probably, you know.
Could have been easier places. Really, he has done 4 Europa Cup races here, though, so he does have experience of this track as much as any of the others he's raced on. So 58.90, he is down and done.
Fourth place at the moment after 2 heats.
He'll have one more trip tomorrow, and again, just a great human story here of people that want to take their athleticism to another level.
Well,
too bad he didn't get a chance to experience. If that crowd was there, Martin, if that crowd was there, they'd be cheering him loudly.
Absolutely.
That's the beauty of this. Those people here just have such an appreciation and love of their sport.
A big billboard of last year's crowd, and yeah, the noise would be worth every penny of the effort that it takes to get you here. So decent run from Evan O'Hanlon and Joseph Williamson. So got Sydney Sider, and the brakeman is from the God Zone. He's currently lives on the Sunshine Coast in Queensland, originally from Bundaberg in tropical Queensland, about as far away from ice and snow as you can get. And as far away from the tail of the field as you can get is Francesco Friedrich with Alexander Schuller behind him, 100th off the all-time start record. They're not near the track record because of the snowy conditions, but they may be setting new records for leaving the rest trailing in their wake. Do you know what? Francesco Friedrich, I never get tired of seeing him drive because he is just so good. And John, leading by 8/10, the battle is for the other medals, for silver and for bronze. Lochner and Vogt and Hanikhofer and maybe Friedrich and maybe Kiebermanis and maybe Hafer and maybe Heinrich, but somebody has got to give medals away for anybody behind Hanikhofer to stand a chance. Around the top 10, Justin Cripps, Brad Hall, Yun Chung Won. There's a nice little battle shaping up there. And at the bottom of the 20, Stulnev and Tentea are in. De Brown is out, and I would be very surprised to see Benny Meyer on the ice tomorrow. Rest before the 4-man week starts would probably be a much better option. Well, that's it from a very snowy start to the 2-man World Championships. The women's competition concludes this afternoon in Altenberg. Join John Morgan, me, Martin Haven, and the IBSF TV crew as our coverage from the 2021 BMW IBSF World Championships continues here in Saxony.